The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and despair. A sterile cage where hope came to die. Ethan's hand trembled as he clutched the cold, lifeless fingers of his boyfriend, Caleb, whose chest no longer rose with breath. 3 hours ago, a drunk driver had stolen Caleb's future and Ethan's heard in a screech of tires and twisted metal on a rain-slicked highway. Ethan's world had collapsed in that instant. He sat by the hospital bed, his vision blurred by tears, replaying their last moment together. Caleb's mischievous grin as he kissed Ethan goodbye, promising to be back for dinner with their dog, Scout, trailing at his heels. Now, Scout lay curled up in the corner of the room, whimpering softly, as if he too understood the void left behind. The doctor's voice cut through Ethan's haze. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Harper. We did everything we could." Ethan didn't respond. He couldn't. His throat was a knot of grief, his chest a hollow ache. Caleb was gone, his laugh, his warmth, the way he'd hum off-key while cooking breakfast. Gone. Ethan's fingers tightened around Caleb's hand, as if holding on could pull him back from the abyss. The days that followed were a blur of condolences and casseroles, none of which filled the emptiness. Ethan's small apartment in the sleepy town of Willow Creek, Oregon, felt like a tomb. Caleb's belongings were everywhere, his favorite flannel shirt draped over the couch, his sketchbook filled with half-finished drawings of Scout and the mountains they loved to hike. Ethan couldn't bear to touch them, yet he couldn't bear to look away. Scout, their 3-year-old golden retriever, became Ethan's shadow. The dog followed him everywhere, his brown eyes heavy with a sadness that mirrored Ethan's own. Every night, Scout would curl up on Caleb's side of the bed, as if waiting for his other dad to come home. Ethan would stroke Scout's fur, whispering, "I miss him too, buddy," until his voice broke. Willow Creek was a small town, the kind where everyone knew your business and whispered about it at the diner. Ethan and Caleb had moved there 2 years ago, seeking a quieter life after the chaos of Portland. They'd found a community that was mostly welcoming, though some sidelong glances followed them when they held hands at the farmer's market. Caleb, ever the optimist, would squeeze Ethan's hand and say, "Let him stare. We're living our truth." Ethan had always admired Caleb's courage, his unapologetic love. Now, without him, Ethan felt like a ship adrift. No anchor, no direction. A week after the funeral, Ethan sat on the porch, staring at the stars. Scout lay beside him, his head resting on Ethan's knee. The night was quiet, save for the distant hum of crickets. Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from his sister. "Mia, you okay? Want me to come over?" He typed back a quick "I'm fine," though he was anything but. How could he explain the weight of losing the person who made every day brighter? How could he describe the guilt of surviving when Caleb didn't? Scout suddenly lifted his head, ears perked. He let out a low whine and bolted toward the backyard, his paws kicking up dirt. Ethan frowned, calling after him, "Scout, what's wrong?" The dog ignored him, digging furiously at the base of the old oak tree where he and Caleb used to sit, sharing beers and dreams of the future. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and followed, his heart pounding for reasons he couldn't name. Scout's claws tore into the earth, unearthing a small, rusted metal box. Ethan knelt beside him, his breath catching. The box was dented, its lock rusted shut, but there was something deliberate about it, something that screamed Caleb. With trembling hands, Ethan pried it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper, its edges worn but intact. In Caleb's messy handwriting, it read, "For Ethan, My forever. Ethan's heart stopped. He unfolded the paper, his eyes scanning the words as tears spilled down his cheeks. It was a lettera final message from Caleb, written before the crash. The words were a lifeline, pulling Ethan from the darkness. But they also carried a mystery that would unravel everything he thought he knew about their love. The letter began, "Ethan, if you're reading this, something's gone wrong. I've been keeping something from you. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted to protect you." Ethan's breath hitched. Protect him? From what? As he read on, the words painted a picture of a secret Caleb had carried. One that tied their love to a past filled with danger, betrayal, and a promise that refused to die. Ethan's hands shook as he held the letter under the flashlight's beam. Scout sat beside him, panting, his fur dusted with dirt from the frantic dig. The oak tree loomed above them, its branches casting jagged shadows across the backyard, as if guarding Caleb's secret even now. The letter continued, "There's a part of my life I never told you about. Ethan, before we met, I was someone else, someone running from a mistake that cost me everything." Caleb's words were cryptic, heavy with regret. He wrote of a night 5 years ago in Chicago, where he'd been entangled with a group of people he called the wrong crowd. A deal gone bad, a betrayal, and a debt he could never repay. "I thought I'd escaped it when I moved to Portland and met you. But they found me again." Ethan's mind reeled. Caleb. His Caleb, with his easy smile and endless optimism, had been hiding a past that sounded like it belonged in a crime novel. The letter didn't name names or specifics, only that Caleb had been working to make things right before it was too late. "I hid this box because I knew they might come for me. If they did, I needed you to know the truth and to stay safe." The final lines hit Ethan like a punch. "You're my reason to keep fighting. Ethan, if I'm gone, don't let them break you. Find the key. It's with Scout." Ethan stared at the dog, who tilted his head as if sensing the weight of the moment. A key? What key? And who were they? Ethan's grief twisted into something sharper: anger, confusion, and a flicker of fear. Why hadn't Caleb trusted him with this? They'd shared everything, their fears, their dreams, the quiet moments when they'd lie in bed, planning a future that now felt like a cruel lie. Ethan stuffed the letter into his pocket and carried the box inside, Scout trailing close behind. The apartment was suffocating, every corner a reminder of Caleb. Ethan set the box on the kitchen table and poured a glass of whiskey, his hands still trembling. He needed answers, but the letter was maddeningly vague. He searched Scout's collar, his bed, even the dog's favorite toy, a tattered tennis ball, but found nothing resembling a key. Exhaustion crept in, but sleep was impossible. Caleb's secret had cracked open a door Ethan wasn't sure he wanted to walk through. The next morning, Ethan drove to the Willow Creek police station, the letter burning a hole in his pocket. The officer on duty, a gruff man named Deputy Harris, listened with a skeptical frown as Ethan explained the box and its contents. "Sounds like a personal matter," Harris said, leaning back in his chair. "No offense, but your boyfriend's gone. Maybe let it rest." Ethan's jaw tightened. He said he was in danger. "Doesn't that mean something?" Harris sighed, promising to look into it, but his tone made it clear he wouldn't. Ethan left the station feeling more alone than ever, the weight of Caleb's words pressing down on him. Back home, Ethan sat on the floor with Scout, running his fingers through the dog's fur. What did he mean? "Buddy, what key?" Scout whined, nudging Ethan's hand with his nose. It was then that Ethan noticed something odd, a faint bulge under Scout's collar, barely noticeable beneath the thick fur. His heart raced as he unbuckled it, revealing a small, flat key taped to the inside. It was engraved with a single word, safe. Ethan's pulse quickened. Caleb had kept a small safe in their closet. One Ethan had always assumed held old documents or family heirlooms. He dragged it out, its weight heavier than he remembered. The key slid into the lock with a satisfying click. But as the door swung open, Ethan's breath caught. Inside was a stack of cash, thousands of dollars, a burner phone, and a notebook filled with Caleb's handwriting. The notebook was a ledger of sorts, listing dates, amounts, and cryptic initials. One entry stood out, J. K. $50. 000. Paid in full. Don't trust him. Ethan's stomach churned. Who was J. K? And why had Caleb been paying someone off? The burner phone was dead, its battery long drained. But it was another clue to a life Caleb had kept hidden. As Ethan pieced together the fragments, a knock at the door startled him. Scout growled, low and menacing, a sound Ethan had never heard from the gentle dog. Through the peephole, Ethan saw a man he didn't recognize, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar across his cheek. The man's voice was calm but cold. Ethan Harper. We need to talk about Caleb. Ethan's heart pounded as he backed away from the door, Scout's growl vibrating through the room. The man knocked again, harder this time. I know you're in there. Ethan. Open the door. It's about Caleb's debt. Debt. The word echoed in Ethan's mind, tying back to the notebook and Caleb's letter. He grabbed the burner phone and notebook, shoving them into a drawer, then motioned for Scout to stay quiet. I don't know what you're talking about, Ethan called through the door, his voice steadier than he felt. The man chuckled, a sound that sent a chill down Ethan's spine. You'll figure it out soon enough. We'll be back. Footsteps retreated, and Ethan peered through the window, watching the man climb into a black SUV and drive off. Ethan sank to the floor, his breath ragged. Scout nudged his shoulder, whining softly. The safe's contents lay scattered on the table: cash, notebook, and that dead phone. Ethan plugged the burner into a charger, praying it would power on. As the screen flickered to life, a single unread message appeared. Dated the day of the crash. Meet me at the quarry. 8 p.m. J. K. The quarry. It was a secluded spot outside Willow Creek where teenagers partied and hikers rarely ventured. Caleb had never mentioned going there, but the timestamp on the message was hours before the crash. Ethan's mind raced. Had Caleb gone to meet this J. K? Was the crash really an accident? Ethan needed answers, but he couldn't do this alone. He called Mia, his sister, who lived an hour away in Eugene. She arrived by noon, her face etched with worry as she hugged him tightly. You look like hell, Ethan. She listened as he explained the letter, the box, and the man at the door, her eyes widening with every detail. This is insane, Mia said, flipping through the notebook. Caleb was paying someone off. For what? Ethan shook his head, his voice hoarse. I don't know, but I need to find out. Mia insisted they go to the police again, but Ethan hesitated. Harris had already dismissed him, and the man at the door had known his name. Trusting the wrong person could be dangerous. Instead, Ethan decided to visit the quarry. He packed a backpack with the notebook, the phone, and a flashlight, then clipped Scout's leash on. Mia protested. But Ethan was resolute. Caleb left me that letter for a reason. I have to do this. Mia relented, promising to stay at the apartment and keep her phone on. The quarry was a half-hour drive. A desolate stretch of gravel and rocks surrounded by dense forest. Ethan parked his truck and let Scout out, the dog's nose immediately hitting the ground. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Ethan's eyes scanned the area, searching for anything to clue. A sign. Anything that connected Caleb to this place. Scout tugged at the leash, leading Ethan toward a cluster of rocks near the quarry's edge. The dog pawed at the ground, unearthing a scrap of fabric caught in the dirt. Ethan's breath caught it was a piece of Caleb's favorite scarf, the blue one he'd worn the day they moved to Willow Creek. Ethan's fingers trembled as he picked it up, the fabric soft and familiar. This wasn't a coincidence. Caleb had been here. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan's flashlight beam caught something glinting in the dirt, a small silver keychain shaped like a star. One Caleb had always carried. Ethan's heart sank. The keychain was scuffed, as if it had been dropped in a struggle. He tucked it into his pocket, his mind racing with questions. Had Caleb been lured here? Was J.K. involved in the crash? Scout suddenly barked, his ears pinned back. Ethan froze, hearing the crunch of footsteps behind him. He spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the dusk, and saw a figure emerging from the trees. It was a woman, mid-30s, with sharp features and a cautious stance. "You're Ethan, aren't you?" she said, her voice low. "I knew Caleb. He told me you might come looking." "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, his hand tightening on Scout's leash. The woman raised her hands, showing she meant no harm. "My name's Lena. I was Caleb's friend before he left Chicago. He was trying to protect you from the people he owed." She glanced around, her eyes wary. "We need to talk. But not here. It's not safe." Ethan's pulse thundered as he followed Lena to a diner on the outskirts of Willow Creek. Scout curled up in the back seat of his truck. The diner was nearly empty, its neon sign flickering in the night. Lena chose a booth in the corner, her eyes scanning the room like someone used to watching her back. "Caleb never wanted you dragged into this," Lena began, stirring her coffee without drinking it. "He thought he could handle it alone." Ethan leaned forward, his voice tight. "Handle what? Who was after him?" Lena's gaze dropped to the table, her fingers tracing the edge of her mug. "A man named Julian Kane J.K. He runs a network of loan sharks and worse. Caleb got mixed up with him in Chicago, borrowing money to help his mom when she was sick." Ethan's mind flashed to Caleb's stories about his mother, how she'd passed away before they met. Caleb had always spoken of her with love, never mentioning debts or danger. "Why didn't he tell me?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking. Lena's eyes softened. "He loved you too much. He thought keeping you in the dark would keep you safe." Lena explained that Caleb had paid off most of the debt before moving to Portland. But Julian had tracked him down, demanding interest that ballooned into tens of thousands. Caleb had been funneling money to Julian through secret meetings, using the cash Ethan had found in the safe. The notebook was a record of those payments, a desperate attempt to stay one step ahead. "The last time I saw him," Lena said, "he was scared. He said Julian was getting impatient." Ethan's stomach twisted. The crash, was it really an accident? Lena hesitated, her jaw tightening. "I don't know. But Caleb was supposed to meet Julian at the quarry that night. If he didn't show," she trailed off, letting the implication hang. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. The drunk driver story had never sat right with him. The police report was too clean. Too convenient. Scout whined under the table, sensing Ethan's tension. Ethan reached down to pet him, his mind racing. What's in the safe? Why the key? Lena leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Caleb said he had something on Julian, evidence that could take him down. He hid it in case things went south. If you have the safe, you need to find it before Julian does. Back at the apartment, Ethan and Mia pored over the safe's contents. The notebook listed payments, but nothing that screamed evidence. The burner phone had no other messages, and the cash was just cash. Mia, ever practical, suggested they hire a private investigator. But Ethan shook his head. This is personal. Caleb left this for me. Mia sighed, her worry palpable, but she agreed to help. Ethan spent the next day digging through Caleb's belongings, searching for anything he'd missed. He found a photo tucked inside Caleb's sketchbook, a Polaroid of them laughing at the beach. Scout chasing waves. On the back, in Caleb's handwriting, was a single word, forever. Ethan's throat tightened. Even in his secrets, Caleb had been thinking of him. That night, Ethan's phone rung, an unknown number. He answered, and a gravelly voice said, "You've got something that belongs to me. Harper. Hand it over, or you'll end up like your boyfriend." The line went dead before Ethan could respond. His heart raced as he checked the locks. Scout growling at the door. The threat was real, and Ethan was running out of time. He decided to retrace Caleb's steps, starting with the quarry again. Under the cover of dawn, he and Scout returned, searching for anything they'd missed. Scout sniffed along the rocks, then froze, his hackles raised. Ethan followed his gaze to a pile of loose dirt, partially hidden by brush. He dug with his hands, unearthing a small, waterproof pouch. Inside was a USB drive, labeled in Caleb's handwriting, for Ethan. The truth. Ethan's hands shook as he pocketed the drive. This had to be the evidence Lena mentioned. He drove straight to Mia's house in Eugene, needing a safe place to check the drive. Huddled at her kitchen table, they plugged it into her laptop. The drive contained a single video file. Ethan clicked play, and Caleb's face filled the screen, his eyes tired but resolute. "Ethan," Caleb's voice said, "if you're watching this, I'm probably gone. I'm so sorry for keeping this from you. Julian Kane is dangerous, and I thought I could outrun him. This video is my insurance proof of what he's done. Keep it safe, and don't trust anyone." The video cut to grainy footage of a man, presumably Julian, handing off a briefcase in a dark alley, his voice barking orders about cleaning up loose ends. Ethan's blood ran cold. Caleb had been playing a dangerous game, and it had cost him everything. Ethan stared at the laptop screen, Caleb's voice echoing in his ears long after the video ended. The footage of Julian Kane was damning proof of illegal deals, maybe even murder. Ethan's hands trembled as he ejected the USB drive, clutching it like a lifeline. Scout lay at his feet, sensing the tension, while Mia paced the kitchen. "We need to take this to the police," she said, her voice firm. But Ethan wasn't so sure. The man at his door, Julian's threat, they knew where he lived. Trusting the wrong person could get him killed. "We can't just sit on this," Mia pressed. "Caleb wanted you to have this for a reason." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. Caleb had risked everything to record that video, to protect him. But what now? Turn it over and hope for justice. or keep digging and risk becoming a target. Ethan's grief was no longer just pine, it was a fire, fueling a need to make things right. He called Lena, arranging to meet at a crowded coffee shop in Eugene. Safety in numbers, he figured. Lena arrived, her eyes darting to every corner of the room. Ethan slid the USB drive across the table, keeping his voice low. This is what Caleb hid. It's evidence against Julian. Lena's face paled as she listened to Ethan describe the video. You can't keep this, she said. Julian's got people everywhere. If he knows you have it, you're dead. Then what do I do? Ethan asked, frustration bleeding into his voice. Lena leaned closer. There's a reporter in Portland, Sarah Nguyen. She's been investigating Julian for years. Caleb trusted her. Get the drive to her, but don't do it alone. Ethan nodded, tucking the drive into his pocket. Lena scribbled an address on a napkin and slid it to him. Be careful, Ethan. Caleb loved Yo'd want you to stay alive. Back at Mia's, Ethan planned his next move. Portland was a 3-hour drive, and he'd need to move fast. He packed a bag, leaving most of Caleb's belongings untouched. The Polaroid of them at the beach went into his wallet, a reminder of why he was doing this. Scout, ever loyal, stayed by his side, his presence a small comfort in the storm. The drive to Portland was tense, Ethan's eyes flicking to the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a black SUV tailing him. Scout slept in the passenger seat, oblivious to the danger. Ethan's mind churned with memories of Caleb, his laugh, the way he'd dance in the kitchen, how he'd whisper, I love you, in the quiet of the night. Those memories were Ethan's anchor, keeping him from drowning in fear. In Portland, Ethan found Sarah Nguyen's office in a nondescript building downtown. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, her desk cluttered with papers and coffee cups. She listened as Ethan explained the USB drive, her expression unreadable. When he played the video, her eyes widened. This is big, she said, her voice steady. Julian Kane's been untouchable for years. Caleb must have known this could get him killed. Sarah agreed to publish the story, but she needed time to verify the footage and protect her sources. Stay low, she warned. If Julian's people are watching, they'll come for you next. Ethan nodded, his stomach nodding. He left the drive with her, trusting Caleb's judgment, and checked into a cheap motel on the city's edge, paying in cash to avoid a paper trail. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Scout curled up beside him, but the motel's thin walls did little to muffle the city's noise or Ethan's thoughts. He kept seeing Caleb's face in the video, the fear in his eyes. Why hadn't Caleb told him? The betrayal stung, but Ethan's love for him burned brighter. Caleb had been trying to protect him, even at the cost of his own life. At 2 a.m., Ethan's phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. You can't hide forever. Give me the drive. Ethan's blood ran cold. He checked the motel's locks, his heart racing. Scout growled, sensing danger. Ethan grabbed his bag and the dog, slipping out the back exit to his truck. He didn't know where to go, but staying still wasn't an option. As he drove through Portland's rain-soaked streets, Ethan realized he was no longer just grieving. He was fighting for Caleb, for their love, for the truth. The USB drive was out of his hands, but the danger was far from over. Somewhere out there, Julian Kane was closing in, and Ethan had to stay one step ahead. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, the rain hammering his truck as he navigated Portland's empty streets. Scout sat alert in the passenger seat, his ears twitching at every sound. The text from the unknown number burned in Ethan's mind. You can't hide forever. He didn't know if it was Julian or one of his lackeys. But the message was clear, was being hunted. He drove aimlessly, avoiding main roads, his heart pounding with every set of headlights in his rearview mirror. Finally, he pulled into a 24-hour gas station, its fluorescent lights a harsh contrast to the dark. He needed a plan. Sarah had the USB drive, but Ethan couldn't just wait for her to break the story. He needed to know more about Julian Kane and what Caleb had been up against. Using the burner phone, Ethan searched Julian's name online. Most results were vague, a few mentions of a businessman with ties to Chicago's underworld. But nothing concrete. One article, buried deep in a local blog, hinted at Julian's involvement in a string of unsolved disappearances. Ethan's stomach churned. Caleb had been tangled in something far bigger than a simple debt. Ethan called Mia, his voice low as he explained the text. "Come back to Eugene," she urged. "We'll figure this out together." But Ethan couldn't risk putting her in danger. "I need to see this through," he said. "For Caleb." Mia sighed, but gave him the number of a friend, a former cop named Tom who'd left the force under murky circumstances. "He's rough around the edges, but he knows people like Julian. He can help." Ethan met Tom at a dive bar on Portland's outskirts. Tom was a burly man with a graying beard and eyes that missed nothing. Over cheap beer, Ethan shared the story: the crash, the letter, the USB drive. Tom listened, his face grim. "Julian Kane's bad news," he said. "He's got cops on his payroll, maybe even in Willow Creek. If Caleb crossed him, the crash wasn't an accident." Tom agreed to dig into Julian's network, using his old contacts. "Stay off the grid," he warned. "No credit cards. No phone calls from your personal cell. And keep that dog close. He's smarter than most people." Ethan nodded, scratching Scout's ears. The dog had been his only constant through this nightmare. For the next 2 days, Ethan and Scout laid low, moving between motels and paying in cash. Ethan's grief was a heavy weight, but it was tempered by purpose. Every night, he reread Caleb's letter, tracing the words "my forever." The love they'd shared was real, even if Caleb's secrets had torn Ethan apart. He clung to that love, letting it fuel his resolve. On the third day, Sarah called. "The footage is legit," she said. "I've got a story ready to go, but I need you to meet me. There's something else Caleb left with me." Ethan's heart skipped. Another piece of the puzzle. He agreed to meet her at a public park, figuring it was safer than her office. The park was busy with joggers and dog walkers. A perfect cover. Sarah handed Ethan a small envelope, her expression tense. "Caleb gave me this months ago. Said to give it to you if anything happened to him." Inside was a single sheet of papera handwritten note. "Ethan, if you're reading this, you found the truth. There's one more thing I hid. Back at our place. Check the floorboard under my desk. I love you. Always." Ethan's throat tightened. Another secret. Another clue. He thanked Sarah and headed back to Willow Creek, his mind racing. The drive felt endless, every shadow a potential threat. When he reached the apartment, he locked the door and moved Caleb's desk, prying up the loose floorboard. Beneath it was a small velvet pouch containing a silver ring, engraved with their initials, E and C. A note was tucked inside. "Marry me, Ethan. Even if I'm gone. Say yes." Tears streamed down Ethan's face as he slipped the ring onto his finger. Caleb had planned a future for them, Even as he faced his past, Scout nudged Ethan's hand, whining softly, as if sharing his grief. But the moment was cut short by a loud bang at the door. "Harper," a voice shouted. "We know you're in there." Ethan grabbed Scout's leash and the pouch, his heart racing. He had to move now. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs as the banging on the door grew louder. Scout's growl was a low rumble, his body tense. "Harper, open up," the voice bellowed. Unmistakably the same man who'd come before the one with the scar. Ethan's eyes darted around the apartment. There was no back exit, no way out except through the front. He grabbed a kitchen knife, his hands shaking, and shoved the velvet pouch with the ring into his pocket. "Stay, Scout," he whispered, guiding the dog to the bedroom and closing the door. Ethan crept to the window, peering through the blinds. The black SUV was parked across the street, its engine running. Another figure stood by it, smoking a cigarette, his silhouette menacing in the moonlight. Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't fight them off, and he couldn't run without a plan. The door shuddered under another blow. Ethan grabbed his backpack, stuffing in the notebook, Caleb's letter, and the star-shaped keychain. He needed to get to Tom or Sarah, someone who could help. But first, he had to escape. He opened the window, wincing at the creak, and climbed onto the fire escape, his breath fogging in the cold night air. The alley below was dark, but it was his only shot. As he descended, the front door splintered open. Heavy footsteps echoed inside, followed by a shout, "He's gone." Ethan hit the ground running, his sneakers pounding the pavement. He ducked behind a dumpster, heart racing, as the scarred man appeared at the window, scanning the alley. Ethan held his breath, praying Scout would stay quiet. After a tense moment, the man retreated, cursing. Ethan sprinted to his truck, parked a block away, and drove toward Eugene, his hands trembling on the wheel. He called Tom, who answered on the first ring. "They came to my place," Ethan said, his voice tight. "I got out, but they're after me." Tom's voice was calm but urgent. "Meet me at the old warehouse on River Road. It's abandoned, safe for now." The warehouse was a crumbling relic, its windows boarded up. Tom was waiting inside, a flashlight casting long shadows. He listened as Ethan recounted the break-in, his face grim. "Julian's desperate," Tom said. "That video's about to go public, and he knows it. You need to disappear until Sarah's story drops." Ethan shook his head. "I can't just hide. Caleb died for this. I need to finish what he started." Tom sighed, running a hand through his beard. "Then we need a plan. Julian's got eyes everywhere, but he's not untouchable. If we can get that video to the right people, FBI, not local cops, we might bring him down." Ethan nodded, the ring in his pocket a reminder of Caleb's love and sacrifice. He handed Tom the notebook, hoping it held more clues. Tom flipped through it, pausing at a page with a phone number scrawled in the margin. "This could be something," he said, dialing it on his burner phone. A woman answered, her voice cautious. "Who is this?" Tom explained, mentioning Caleb's name. The woman went silent, then said, "Meet me in Seattle tomorrow. I can help." She hung up before giving her name. Seattle was a risk, but Ethan had no choice. He drove through the night, Scout asleep in the back, the ring a heavy weight against his chest. By dawn, he reached a small cafe in Seattle's Capitol Hill, where the mystery woman waited. She introduced herself as Rachel, a former associate of Julian's who'd turned informant. Caleb reached out to me months ago, she said. He was building a case against Julian, collecting evidence. That video was just the start. Rachel revealed that Julian's operation extended beyond loans, drugs, extortion, even hits. Caleb had stumbled into it by accident, borrowing money for his mom, only to realize Julian never let anyone go. He was trying to get out, Rachel said, her eyes sad. For you. Ethan's throat tightened. Caleb's love had been his shield, even as it led to his death. Rachel offered to connect Ethan with an FBI contact, but they had to move fast. Julian's people were closing in, and Ethan's escape from Willow Creek had only bought him time. As they left the cafe, Scout barked, his hackles raised. Across the street, the black SUV idled, its driver watching them. Ethan's heart sank. Time was up. Ethan's breath caught as he spotted the SUV, its tinted windows hiding the threat inside. Rachel grabbed his arm, pulling him back into the cafe. We need to move, she whispered, her eyes sharp with urgency. Scout growled, his leash taut in Ethan's hand. The cafe's back exit led to a narrow alley, and they slipped out, Rachel leading the way to her car, parked a block away. As they sped through Seattle's streets, Rachel called her FBI contact, Agent Torres, arranging a meet at a safe house. Torres has been after Julian for years, she said. Your video could be the break he needs. Ethan clutched the ring in his pocket, its engraving E and CA reminder of why he couldn't stop now. Caleb's love, his sacrifice, demanded justice. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a quiet suburb. Agent Torres, a wiry man with a no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed the video and notebook, his expression grim. This is enough to start an investigation, he said. But Julian's slippery. We need more to nail him, witnesses, corroboration. Ethan's heart sank. Caleb died for this. Isn't it enough? Torres met his gaze. It's a start. But you need to stay hidden until we move. For 2 days, Ethan and Scout stayed in the safe house, the walls closing in. Rachel brought news that Sarah's story had gone live, exposing Julian's dealings. The article didn't name Ethan, but it mentioned an anonymous source enough to make Julian desperate. Ethan's phone buzzed with another text. You're next. Harper. He showed it to Torres, who tightened security around the safe house. On the 3rd day, Torres got a Lita warehouse in Tacoma where Julian was meeting his crew. We're moving in, he told Ethan. Stay here. You've done enough. But Ethan couldn't sit still. Caleb's voice in the video, his letter, the ring, they all screamed for closure. Against Torres' orders, Ethan slipped out with Scout, borrowing Rachel's car to follow the FBI team. The warehouse was a hulking shadow against the night sky. Ethan parked a safe distance away, watching as agents surrounded the building. Scout whined, sensing the tension. Through binoculars, Ethan saw Julian's scarred face, cold eyes arguing with a group of men. Then, chaos. Gunshots rang out, and Ethan ducked, his heart racing. Scout barked, pulling at his leash, and Ethan realized the dog had caught a scent. Scout led him to a side entrance, where a familiar figure lay slumped Tom, blood seeping from a wound in his side. Ethan, Tom gasped. Julian knew about the video. He's getting away. Ethan called for help, pressing his jacket against Tom's wound. Agents swarmed in, apprehending Julian's men. But Julian was gone, slipping through the chaos. Back at the safe house, Ethan sat with Scout, his mind heavy. Tom survived, but Julian was still out there. Torres assured him the FBI was closing in, using the video and Sarah's story to build a case. But for Ethan, it wasn't enough. Caleb's death wasn't just a crime, it was a theft of their future. Weeks later, Julian was arrested in a sting operation, the video and Rachel's testimony sealing his fate. Ethan returned to Willow Creek, the ring still on his finger. He sat under the oak tree where Scout had dug up the box, the letter in his hands. Caleb's words me forever felt like a promise kept. Ethan whispered, "Yes, Caleb, I'll marry you." Scout nudged his hand, and for the first time since the crash, Ethan smiled. The town slowly healed around him. Ethan started a foundation in Caleb's name, helping LGBTQ youth in small towns like Willow Creek. He spoke at schools, sharing their story, not just the pain, but the love that had carried them through. The ring stayed on his finger, a symbol of a bond that death couldn't break. One evening, as Ethan walked Scout through the park, he saw a rainbow flag fluttering outside the dinner, a quiet nod from a town that had once whispered about them. Ethan's heart swelled. Caleb's fight, his love, had left a mark. And as the sun set, casting a golden glow over Willow Creek, Ethan felt his forever watching over them.